Hi, I'm Dave Solomon. I'm 5'10", sometimes 5'11", or 5'10", and you are listening to Robert Peterpaul and How We Roll.
Oh, I got a little shout out.
When it comes to working in entertainment, there's a lot of hows, and they all boil down to how we navigate this wild industry. While how we follow our dreams is uncertain, how we roll along the way is in our hands. Welcome to How We Roll, a podcast for actors by casting networks.
Hello, actors. It's your friend and fellow actor, Robert Peterpaul, here with a show-stopping episode today. Jazz hands. We're rolling into an ever-growing genre that has audiences everywhere singing in the shower after viewing. I'm talking about the wonderful world of movie musicals. The past decade or so has seen a renaissance of movie musicals on the big screen. From La La Land and The Greatest Showman to Disney's live-action hits. And of course, the record-breaking film adaptation of Wicked, proving that this genre isn't merely alive, it's defying gravity. No. Today we're figuring out how to break into this niche yet fruitful game. And who better to guide us than a creative who's worked on big Broadway musicals, major movie musicals, and even movies that are being adapted into musicals. Say that 5 times fast. Red leather, yellow leather has got nothing on that warm-up. My kind-hearted friend, Dave Solomon. 5, 6, 7, 8. Dave Solomon is a writer and director working on musicals across theater and film. Since graduating from Vassar College, Dave's been associate director to titans like Olivier winner Scott Ellis, Tony winner Joe Mantello, and Oscar winner Bill Condon, working on 16 Broadway shows, including Sideshow, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Curtains, Assassins, and 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton. Don't worry, I asked for a Dolly story. Plus, the Broadway adaptations of Elf and Tootsie, which he also directed the tours of. Speaking of icons, Dave collaborated with the Big Mouse on Disney's live adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, starring Emma Watson. His other on-screen work includes Fox's musical spectacular A Christmas Story Live, Mr. Holmes, starring Ian McKellen and Laura Linney, and his own short films like Brenda and Billy and the Pothos Plant. Dave's career swirls with original works, including new musicals Already Perfect and Pump Up the Volume based on the 90s film. And because today is all about movie musicals, let's not forget that he's working alongside John M. Chu on bringing Crazy Rich Asians to the stage. Stay tuned for that, and keep up with my friend at dave-solomon.com. Luckily for us actors, Dave teaches in institutions around the country, making it his mission to empower creatives with skills for following their dreams. And that's what I hope this podcast does for you today, friend. If you have any hows you want answered, please drop us a line at the link in the show notes or on social media at Casting Networks and at Rob Peterpaul. Now curtain up, light the lights. Here's How We Roll with Movie Musicals, featuring the dazzling Dave Solomon. Dave, my friend, thank you so much for rolling with us today as you take a sip of your tea. Of course, yes. I start talking.
No, I told you I have my tea. I'm somehow losing my voice. For anyone who knows me, I might sound a little deeper. But
you sound great.
Robert Peterpaul is telling me it will not be distracting and grating and make you turn off the podcast.
Now that you mentioned it, bye everybody.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, let everybody know where you are because you're in this very sort of artistic, there's a beautiful desk behind you. I just want to paint the picture for the listeners.
I'm in an idyllic artist retreat. I'm actually in this, it's my second time here, and they just started a year or so ago, Wilcox Park in Westerly, Rhode Island. I shouldn't tell everyone where I am, but I'm in I just did. So there you go.
It's okay.
But it's wonderful, and it's called Air Artist in Residence with the Westerly Library and Wilcox Park, and they restored this old cottage that's in this beautiful town park and this very beautiful kind of old-fashioned town that I ended up working in a few summers ago, and I was like, what is this cottage? And found out I could apply for residency here, and now I know people in the neighborhood and the area, and I got to apply again, and so I live in this cottage in a park, and I'm literally looking, you can't see this part, but I'm literally looking out a window at a pond covered in ice with snow around it, and it's a beautiful setting where I can write horror, which is what I'm doing.
Nick Carraway, come on. I mean, you're just like living the idyllic, dreamy dream over there. And I guess before you got there, one of the questions I always like to start out asking this season is, what was your very first job in the industry?
Oh my God. I did everything through, like, even growing up, I was acting, but I was making movies with an old, I'm going to date myself, VHS camcorder in the backyard and putting my brother into movies. And I was putting on plays in the living room, and I did one roller skate play where I had to use the garage as the curtain.
Xanadu?
No, it was Mickey Mouse Disco. And my sister and we choreographed and planned this whole show, and she fell during the opening number and scraped her leg. And my parents were like, this is it. We'd rehearsed for weeks and weeks. And I was just pissed. I was like, the show goes on. And they were like, no, it's done. And we never did it. We got halfway through the opening number, and my sister got hurt and ruined the show.
What?
And so I'm still trying to make up for that in life.
Come on.
Yeah.
I love that. You were like, the show must go on.
There you go. And then in high school, I was in all the plays and musicals and leading roles, Robert Peterpaul.
Take a drag of a fake cigarette.
We did Anyone Can Whistle. I played Hapgood in Anyone Can Whistle. For anyone who knows, obscure Sondheim.
If you know, you know.
Less obscure now. But anyway, the point is, but I got to make an independent film, and I was doing all this stuff. And then college, I always thought I wasn't good enough, and I would go, and I went to Vassar, and there were all these people who had been in films and TV shows. Lisi Goranson from Roseanne was there, and I was seeing them in plays. I was like, I can't do this. But then I was like, see some other plays and be like, I can do this. The point is, I got to New York, and I started temping and auditioning. So I was in some plays downtown that I would not remember even names of. Some fun things. I did like a hair downtown, but the first thing I got paid for probably was actually it was like, I think it was actually Forestburg Theater, which is summer stock, but they did a winter season, and I was in the Mousetrap. And I was probably paid a little something for that because I did a lot of free theater acting. And then the first job I was paid for production wise was I was a production assistant. Well, I got a job at Roundabout Theater Company working in the business office, and was doing paperwork and doing things, and people got to know me and my interest. And I directed Assassins in college and company. I was a Sondheim geek, and I wanted to assistant direct, and Joe Mantello did not need an assistant, but they were like, would you want a PA? And I was like, yes, to be involved with the first Broadway revival production of Assassins. So that was probably my first paid gig, being a production assistant on Assassins at Studio 54, which then led me to meet the incredible Joe Mantello, who I then assistant directed for many years, and other people that kind of started me on that journey. And at the same time, I was working for Roundabout, and I was keeping that business office job, but doing stuff. And then Scott Ellis needed an assistant for the gala, which was a Sondheim gala, and I was working with Paul Gemignani, the brilliant music director, and Sydney Beers, producer, who was at that time general manager at Roundabout, and now is producing director at Roundabout. Recommended me to Scott to do the gala with him, and then I started working with Scott and he was like, come do this workshop of curtains with me. So I assistant directed him on curtains, and I was going to LA as assistant director. So that was kind of that's the quick version of my little path. So I guess it would be little winter summer stock gig, and then production wise PAing on Assassins.
Well, I'm going to call it the mice journey, because there's the Mickey Mouse in the garage roller rink, and then there's the Mousetrap downtown, and then there's the Big Mouse, which ultimately led you to Beauty and the Beast, Disney. I mean, we got a lot to cover today, and I think your story's super cool because it started from a human aspect. You were in the office, people just got to know you as a person, and that sort of led to you getting a job. But before we dive into all of this in the wonderful world of musicals, jazz hands, everybody, whether it's kind of on-screen musicals, like I mentioned, Beauty and the Beast, to on-stage movies that have become musicals like Elf. You've worked on so many throughout your career. And I know grounding everything, despite it seeming like a big show, in truth is incredibly important to you. So to set the scene, I guess that might have to do with what you think is your best piece of advice for everybody listening out there who, first of all, just wants to break into the musical world, whether it's on screen or Broadway. Just to start with a big question in general, yeah.
You know what? I was thinking about this last night because I knew you were going to ask me questions like this, Robert Peterpaul.
I got a lot.
And I was listening to other people who have like quotes and other guests you've had on. I'm like, shit,
No.
what am I going to say? But no, actually, I think it's two things. There's like, you have to make your own path, but then you sometimes also have to follow and trust where it's going. Like sometimes you're laying the path and sometimes you just have to follow it. Because I think it's kind of like the being in the right place at the right time, but also being ready for when the right place, the right time happens. And I think we also make that happen. Like the fact that my high school theater teacher introduced me to Sondheim musicals. Like I was in Anyone Can Whistle, and she showed us Sunday in the Park with George, the videos of the original productions in Sweeney Todd. And
So good.
I was obsessed with Sondheim. And then the first Broadway show I worked on was Assassins. And then I was brought over to work with Scott because I knew Paul Gimignani, and I literally could recommend who could sing what for this gala, because I knew I was that, Sondheim geek who knew like, well, Polly Morgan did I'm Still Here and Follies and like, I knew this stuff. So I was in the right place at the right time, but I also had to carve the path myself because those were my interests. So I'm leaning into things like Assassins. Yeah, I'll PA, I'll make coffee, I'll do whatever I can. So I just think it's partially both, because you do have to do the work and kind of find your way into the rooms you want to be in, but then also kind of trust, because sometimes it doesn't go that way. And that happens to me a lot still. It happens to all of us. And it's kind of like sometimes like I had a big project fall through, and like a year or so ago, and I was like, I'll never work again. What am I going to do? And then something else took me in another direction that I'm so grateful for.
Watch what comes into the void. That's what my nanny always says. Although it's pretty much on par with the quote you just gave, which I think you should trademark, Dave. I mean, that was beautiful. Laying the path, but sometimes you just to walk on it. That was, we got to walk the line. And then just hearing you as a successful director say what you just said, I think is helpful to a lot of actors, because we don't realize that other creative folks are in the same boat that we are. Even though we may feel like we're in it more often because we have a self-tape a day, we get rejected every day. It's the same for everybody. Everybody's just trying to work in this industry, which can be a little tough, but it's also magical. And it's interesting too, because I flagged that you said you started out falling in love with Sondheim by watching a lot of his shows on screen with the taped version. And then you've kind of landed in this space of, yes, you're doing a lot on stage, but also you're working a lot on screen. And having worked on both, I wonder, what are some of the major differences you've noticed for performers in stage musicals versus movie musicals, in how people can cater their performance to the screen? I know you talk about big and small not being a thing.
Oh my God, you know what else I was thinking about last night? Because I knew this would come up based on what, we were planning to talk about. And I was thinking about, for anyone who's seen it, and I'm sure some people have, or they've been in it, Vanya, Sonia, and Masha and Spike.
Yeah.
Christopher Durang play has a great, and I literally pulled it up and found this quote because I was like, I don't want to misquote Christopher Durang and end up stumbling. But I literally was like, this might come up, so I'm going to take this moment to share, and I'll never forget the original production. That was the funniest thing, where Sigourney Weaver, who plays Masha, right?
I think so.
And maybe I should just paraphrase it, because now I feel dumb reading a quote. Like, I'm so prepared for these questions.
No, that's nice. Preparation is kindness.
The young woman asks, what's the difference between acting in a movie and acting on stage? And Masha says, no, it's not. She said, it's a stupid question. No, it's not stupid at all. In film, you're acting in front of a camera and you need to speak in a normal voice. And on stage, you're in sort of a wooden box in front of people who are looking at you, and you must speak more loudly so they can hear you. And I remember Sigourney Weaver doing this, start speaking loudly, and you must speak more loud, doing this false acting, stage thing.
That's really funny and interesting, because even as a musical theater director, whether it is for a movie musical or a stage musical, I think a lot of actors don't realize too that you don't have to show in your self-tape audition, if it's not in the room, that you can sing to the back of the house. Even if it's for a musical, the audition, I think you should still translate that skill and perform on camera. Auditioning is a whole separate skill, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And you just sent me into like 5 different directions, but
Let's
yes.
do it.
And per that quote and what you're saying, one
Yeah.
of the differences I will say, because I think there isn't so much of a difference, because I do believe, like you said so well, because you did take a class of mine, and anyone who has and who's listening will still be like, oh, we know, is all about truth. And I feel like whether you're working on Elf or Beauty and the Beast, or I'm trying to think of something I've done. I just did this show in London, Already Perfect. Like, that is very truthful. And like someone, and Levi Christ wrote this piece that I worked on with him about his real experiences and blah, blah. And doing film, I feel like no matter what level of style of comedy or musical or play it is, it's always, to me, about connecting to the truth of it. But there is something, even though it's a funny line in the play, and I do remember Sigourney Weaver doing this big, like, and you have to talk loud and they're in a play. There is some truth in that. In my first professional film experience, again, I'd done little shorts and some of my own stuff, and then I assisted Bill Condon on 2 movies, which was The Beauty and the Beast you mentioned, and Mr. Holmes before that, which was a smaller film with Ian McKellen as an aging Sherlock Holmes and Laura Linney. And I remember the first day of shooting, having just been doing nonstop theater, we're out. It was an exterior shot, but they were on a bench. It was Ian and Hattie Morahan, a great actress, and they're just doing this dialogue, and we're all putting in headphones to hear them, and because they're just talking like normal people on a bench, because it's a film, as opposed to if we were in a rehearsal studio doing a play. So there is truth to the comical Durang line about, yes, you do have to speak louder when you're doing a play and you're projecting a little differently. But it's all, to me, kind of the same. And it's not like there's always those kind of, I don't want to say cliches, but like, oh, it's bigger if you're on stage and it's smaller if you're doing a play. I mean, a film. But I think it's more about what the material is. Like, you see people go broad in certain films, whether it's, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Too embarrassing. The stylized His Girl Friday. Oh my God, famous.
Well, I was thinking of Parker Posey in White Lotus is probably a good example.
There you go, sure.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And to me, it's almost like the difference isn't maybe big or small. It's sort of just locking in on the tone and then being in that tone. And, you know, Buddy the Elf, to talk about Elf's tone,
100%.
is on a sugar high.
Yeah.
So what's your advice on sort of locking in on the tone and then trying to translate that through your performance?
I think that's interesting. And Elf is a good example of that, because becoming a part of the musical, I was the associate director on the Broadway revival, the recent one, and then put up the tour this past year. And it's interesting because I went back to the film, which is slightly a different tone. And Gray Henson, who was our Buddy the Elf on Broadway, is so brilliant. And it's all about that truthful innocence that Will Ferrell did and that Gray did. I think the musical just does have a little different tone and style to it, because it is a Broadway musical, and you're, you know, and Bob Martin's book is playing, you know, jokes to an audience and laughs and things. It has a different kind of rhythm and tone, but there's still a truth to it. But I would say there's a kind of a difference in tone and style. And I feel like you often find that in the room or with the writing, and you kind of, you know, it's project to project, whether it's a film or a movie. Because again, there are, like you were saying, stylized films where we see like heightened performances, like Coen Brothers, like Hudsucker Proxy is a good example. Jeffrey Jason Lee is doing that fast-paced His Girl Friday type dialogue. That's probably an obscure reference that a lot of people don't know, but
no, I think they will. That's a great reference.
But I
think,
know
everything.
Yeah.
Your brain is filled with so many references and so much knowledge that I want to ask you 75,000 questions, but we don't have enough time for that. And so as we're in this sort of stage of talking about actors doing the work of uncovering and building the character and being little detectives, I wonder from the audition standpoint, whether it's for a movie musical or a regular musical, if you're filming on tape, a lot of the times the first thing is you picking your own audition song cut. In your opinion, what makes a great audition song? What's your advice on sort of picking a song for an audition? I know it's relative to the project, but...
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I'm teaching an audition class now, actually, and I honestly think it is relative to the project and what you think will be right for this piece, but then also something that you're comfortable with and shows you off to the best of your abilities. my thing, again, coming to the truth of it, which I try to impart to young actors all the time, is, and kind of going along with what you're saying, is like, I don't need to know you need to belt to these rafters or blah, blah, blah. And the music directors, you all know, will ask you, like, if your song doesn't show off the voice that we might need, like if you're, I'm not part of Wicked, but if you're auditioning for Elphaba and it doesn't hit those notes, it's like, they'll be like, can you sing this? Or they'll have to come back. I think it's most important, again, to see you make a choice, commit to something, and commit to a character. And if you're coming in with again, you're talking about an audition, not a callback. I almost jumped to that.
Well, we can jump all over. Everybody, Dave and I are friends, so I kind of just want to jump left and right, and I'm trying to be a professional interviewer, doing my best.
But my head goes in like 5 different directions, and then I try to connect the dots. And
let's follow it. It's all really interesting. I do remember, because we met when I took one of your classes, and one of the things that really stuck with me is that you said, in regards to an audition song, whether you're breaking down material or picking it yourself, you said, don't overwhelm yourself. Just give yourself one very tangible objective to achieve by the end of the song. I think with my song, you suggested, it's almost a love song. You were like, what if it's just as simple as you want this person to kiss you by the end of the song? You know, something very tangible you can kind of latch onto. As a director, how would you advise folks to sort of analyze the arc of their song, whether it's 16 bars or, you're working on a full Broadway production?
And I love that you remember that. And I am really based in kind of objective work, because when I was an actor in high school, that's what I was taught in Uta Hagen, and objective obstacle action.
Yeah.
Uta. Shout out.
I got Uda's book right here.
Do you? Respect for acting. Genius. That was my Bible, and I still use that with students. And I got to see her in Collected Stories off Broadway, which was amazing. She was truly incredible.
That's so cool.
But so, yeah, I do focus on objective a lot. And I think, because when I was an actor, I was a terrible auditioner. And even in college, they'd be like, well, we know Dave can do this, but I was bad at it. And I never had someone kind of teach me this. But when I got to a play, I played Charlie Merrily We Roll Along in college. And I did so much work, because you're going backwards, and it's like, clear out what just happened, like what, and I do a lot of like, what happened right before I'm entering the scene, where I am with Frank and Mary, like. And I tell people to do that for auditions. I think one of the most, you obviously have to be comfortable with the song. You want something to show off your voice and who you are. But again, if you're going in for a certain show, a certain character, it's like, find something that lives in that world and then commit to it. But I think sometimes the best thing to do in an audition is, right before you're going to sing, is say, okay, here I go. And ask yourself as a character, what happened right before I sang this? Why do I need to sing this, like you said? And sometimes we always talk about the big overall objectives with a character, like, what does Cinderella want in her life and Into the Woods? But sometimes, a lot of times in life, we just feel an unrest and we want that to go away. Like, we're not objectively thinking about, like, my big life goals. We're just trying to, I feel uncertainty. Why? Did this really just happen? Like, I go into The Wizard and I. It's like, I'm not unsure of myself. Like, so what's driving? And again, like you said, sometimes it's like, you just want the person across from you to smile. It's like, you want a glimpse, like, what are you trying to do in that song? And if you give yourself something small to focus on, what just happened right before? What did someone say to me? Put yourself as if you're doing a production, not an audition. Like, the baker's right across from you, and the baker wife's gonna ask something. It's like, who are you singing to, and what do you want from them? And put yourself like you're doing a play, and not focusing on a room of people behind a table and how I'm gonna hit these notes and hit these things.
I think that's brilliant advice. And don't forget too to react to the imaginary or real scene partner you have, because if they turn away and they're not smiling, well, that might increase your need to sing and tell the story further. And then maybe they finally do, and then it's a quiet moment. I don't know. So there's a lot to unpack. And in looking at that, in collaborating with actors in a callback in the room, or once they book it, and I hope everybody books it, what would you say is your favorite kind of actor to work with in general? Because you're very open about the fact that, and I think most people are now, that it's a business. We all talk. Everybody wants referrals. That's sort of something we can dispel, is that if you're going to hire someone, you might call another theater to ask how they were to work with. What would you say is your favorite kind of collaborator?
Robert Peterpaul.
Okay, bye everybody. That's the only reason we're here.
Honestly, it's a thing we're all feeling out in the room, and I think actors do too. It's like, there are points where you are like, oh, I just want a job, or and I am too. Like, I just need work. I need something. And then there are times you really want something, or you get a feeling for something in the room. Like, you may even go in for an audition, and then the director gives you some notes and there's some adjustments, and you're like, ooh, I like this collaboration. And I feel like it's hard to put that into words, but it's like you want someone you want to work well with, who's going to make you challenge you in some ways too, but also like, it's that everyone always says this, right? Like, we want you to be good. When we're in that audition room too, it's our day as well. We want to find our Sally Bowles and our MC. We want to find that perfect person, and it might not be what we're expecting. Do you bring me in a different direction? That's happened to me too, where I was like, this is not what I was expecting for this part, but that was interesting. Yeah. But then it's also, I'm a big get up from the table and like, if it is someone I like give them some adjustments and talk to them. So I get a feeling of like, okay, we'd work well together. You can never tell in like 2 seconds, and we're all in an audition mindset, but you just get an instinct, right? Sometimes with people. So I want people who are like, also excited and will want to be there, and, or might, bring something new to it and be fun to work with, because it should be fun, right? Why are we doing this? I think
so. Yeah. I love that. I love that you make it fun. And I mean, speaking of people that you succeed, people that maybe make it fun, you mentioned Ian McKellen. You've collaborated with phenomenal performers we all know and love, from Emma Watson to Santino Fontana to the SAG president. Hey, Sean Astin.
Oh my God, I love Sean Astin.
On Elf, which is so funny. Is there a common thread you've sort of noticed with talent at the top of their game? Like, do you feel like there's something you can pinpoint for everybody listening that, I don't know, I'm sure it's their sense of fun and play and maybe their openness, but any thoughts there?
I mean, everyone's an individual, which is why I also love what we do in the world we live in, and, that we get to work on different projects and meet different people. And I'm sure you all feel the same way about directors. It's like there's some can't stand, or some that you like, oh, I would do anything with them. And we're not all always perfect either. It's like we all have our bad days, and we're all just people going through it, and it is stressful because there's no right answer. So we're all creating art, whether it's Elf or Sunday in the Park with George, or this
or
Mr.
conversation,
Holmes.
Dave.
With this conversation.
We're creating art right now.
Are we? I keep forgetting I'm being filmed, and I'm probably looking like a crazy
my
person.
goal is to make you forget, and I just reminded you. You don't look like a crazy person.
Now I forgot what I was saying, but it was brilliant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really good at that. Well, no, you were saying it was great. You were saying we're all unique individuals, and we bring something different to the table. And
but you know what I was going to say? Yes, but I think there's a level of confidence which we all get the more we're doing. So when you say people who are been more seasoned and around, it's like when you don't have as much to prove. I feel like the younger me was overeager sometimes, and there's a fine line. And even as a director or a PA or an actor, it's like you are, which is also, I love working with young people, because it's like sometimes you also get older and jaded, and it's like you need a paycheck, as opposed to when you're in school and you it brings back that passion, like, well, we're doing this. But I just think as you get more under your belt, there is kind of a quiet confidence, whether you're, even in audition, it's like, I can give you that note, but I wouldn't be able to give it 8 times a week, and I can do this, that, it's like there's just a confidence in your ability and what you can bring to the table, where you are an equal in the room, as opposed to when you're a young actor and you're like, I'm just happy to be here and I'll do anything they tell me. And I think, that confidence is, and some people from the beginning are confident. I think that is important. I think we all have to be, and again, to auditioning or just being in the room, it's like committing to things and making choices and being confident about them and who we are as well.
Yeah. What's wrong with being confident? Ask Demi Lovato. I don't know. I think that's awesome.
It's just hard. It's easy to say. I'm not. I am at times, but sometimes I'm like, oh God.
I know. I think it's the thing about being human, right? And then there's people like Patti LuPone comes to mind, who's so confident. And I think she gave advice. I heard her give advice to students once, which was that she doesn't understand why everybody screams singing nowadays, which, that's her opinion. But she said, don't be afraid to lower the song so it actually, like you said before, is comfortable in your voice and is something you're willing to sing in an audition at 10 a.m. And you can tell the story and not focus on hitting a certain note. And it's like I think a lot of us in the beginning are afraid that if we don't sort of give people what they quote unquote want, we're not going to get the job. But the truth is, people want to see you for you, and you might not get that job at first, but they might remember you in a year and call you in for something that you're like kind of uniquely right for. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
And
that
I
what you
think,
said is
and again,
great.
sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, I'm rambling.
No, please, I'm rambling. I'm talking.
This podcast is called Robert's Rambles with Dave.
Oh my God, I ramble. But individuality, and I've been known to do that. And again, every director is different, but to what you were saying before about what you bring to something and going in and being worried about notes or hitting something, I have literally had situations where there's an actor who was so different than everyone else, but vocal range may not have been perfect. But I said to the music director, it's like, we'll figure it out. Like, and the composer, I'm like, and everyone was like, yep. Because it was like, that's it. And now we can rewrite the music to it because that's the person. That's why I think the most, and what again, I'm not a music director. So what I'm looking for in audition is the actor and who's going to play this part and bring something to it that we've never seen. And to me, then it's like, then it's the question of like, oh, can they sing it? And again, if their audition song didn't fit it, bring them back in, like see what they can do. And then, is this worth changing music for? Is it worth, it's conversations. It's just bringing, again, yourself and your truth and making your choices and then seeing if it's a match.
And this is something I think we see a lot in the on-screen musicals, especially if there's a bigger star involved, or even TV show episodes like Palm Royale that I love. And I think Kristen Wiig can do no wrong, but I don't know if she's a trained singer. She sounds lovely. But I would say they favor the storytelling. And if the person is delivering the performance within the given circumstances and the character and all that jazz, you don't necessarily notice that maybe they're not hitting this note or that note. And I think you see that on Broadway too. It might not be technically the best singer, but you don't notice that because it's more about the storytelling. And what's been your experience moving into the on-screen world of it? We have Beauty and the Beast, which is, a huge, massive project to be a part of that you worked on with Bill Condon. What did you take away from that experience overall as a creative who's very knowledgeable about the musical world and then kind of stepping into this huge production of a movie musical?
It's a good question. And the funny thing about all this is, I gave you my brief history, and what's funny about it all is that all along those paths, like when I was acting and going to college, I was a film major at Vassar. So I did better in film than in my theater classes. I always thought I would be doing film, and I do, and I'm trying to do more of it now on my own. Like I've had 2 shorts that I wrote, and more than 2, but 2 that I wrote and directed that kind of played the festival circuit and this and that. So I was always thinking that's what I was going to do. And honestly, I was like, I'm not good enough to do theater. Not that there's one's harder than easier or harder than the other. They're just different. But I always felt more confident and comfortable in film. So it was sort of a dream come true. Also, I was a Disney geek growing up. So it was kind of, and I think I can share because I was working with Bill, who is a genius, Bill Condon. I was connected with Bill to do the revival of Sideshow, as I had worked with people he knew, and he was looking for an associate director to do a theater project. And he was coming from film world, though he knows and loves theater so much. So we were connected for Sideshow and working together a bit, and they took me with him and on Mr. Holmes and on Beauty. And when he called me that Beauty and the Beast was happening, he was like, a live action version of the animated film. I was like, no, because I was such a fan of the animated film. So I felt like it, but then I felt like in a way, like a responsibility to the fans, like working alongside Bill. I was kind of the true, like had watched that film how many times that he'd ask me like, well, what would the fans think? Like, what do you think about things we were changing or doing differently? But it's probably the biggest thing I'll ever be involved with. I mean, that was huge. But kind of and kind of a dream come true. But it was just insane. I mean, there are the CGI extensions of things, but a lot of that set and stuff was built, and people would come. We'd have 2 sound stages. We were at Shepperton Studios in London, and literally, if you came in the entrance, when you see Kevin Kline come into the castle that first time, and he's going towards the stairs, and you see past him, you see the entrance into the ballroom, and the whole ballroom's there in the distance. That was there. That's not CGI. Like we literally, you could walk through the entrance to the castle and up these stairs. Or you could go right to the fireplace or left, and go up this way and into the ballroom. Like it was 2 connected sound stages. So,
wow. I wish they built that in Disney World and kept it.
I know. People would literally visit set and be like, I can't believe it, and or come to set, and just yeah, it was special. But that was probably the biggest, yeah, will probably be the biggest thing I've ever worked on. What was the
Well, I mean,
question?
no, no, I think you're leading right into my next thought, which is that on these movie musicals, TV musicals, of course on stage as well, but there's a whole other element. There's CGI, there's cameras. I wonder in Beauty and the Beast, I think they were mostly lip syncing, I read. So, but you still have to be grounded, which is an interesting skill in itself. So it's just like it's balancing your instincts with technical demands, whether it is like singing along or choreography of the camera and being aware in these big dance numbers. Like, what are some of those technical tricks that you can share?
Yeah, it's interesting. The lip syncing thing is, I mean, that's common. I mean, you hear so much
Yeah.
about, though they sing live on set. They said live on set, and we did too. There were parts in Beauty and the Beast. I mean, when we did that final ballroom thing, Audra was singing. It was
Oh,
amazing.
so
Everyone was
good.
like, "Oh my
Oh,
god!"
yeah.
That was a day too, because there were a few days of shoot when everyone, because all the enchanted objects come back to life, and everyone was. It was like this row of chairs of like Ewan McGregor, Ian McKellen,
Yeah.
Audra McDonald, Stanley Tucci. Like it was just like everyone. Emma Thompson. It was just crazy because everyone's in
Wow.
that dance, and Kevin Kline and Josh Gad. Everyone was in that scene. Emma Watson and Dan Stevens but you do have to pre-record because it's different shots and things. So you do have to have a track
Yeah.
down that you work from. And I think most musicals even do that. And then, you work away from there. Because there were times too where we did do in Beauty too, where it's like, just do it live. Because it was like an intimate moment or in something smaller. And it was like, just do it. But it's hard because when you're editing together a big sequence, like Belle or I was gonna say Be Our Guest, which is a lot of CG and animation, but even that was filmed live with real lighting cues by Peggy Eisenhower and Jules Fisher.
Wow. And that's a skill in itself too, right? I mean, Emma, I saw videos of her acting alongside the Beast. It's just there's a lot of
Yeah,
make
and she would
believe.
sing live at times too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of make believe, right? That comes into play with these CGI
Oh,
elements.
100%. And we would do, and they would, all the voice actors for that film did, like Emma Thompson pre-recorded Mrs. Potts. So then you would just have a tray with a still pot on it that was a real Mrs. Potts, like that was designed to look like Mrs. Potts. You see them in the movie when they all,
So
spoiler
cool.
alert, get kind of quote unquote die at the end and become their inanimate objects, and you see them,
They do?
and then they come back to life, Robert. Double
Is Santa
spoiler alert.
real? Is Santa real? No.
Yes. So they would record their voices. So Emma Watson would like have this tray moving next to her, like if she's having a scene with Mrs. Potts, and she would have Emma Thompson's voice like to act off of. We couldn't have them all on the set. Sometimes you do. Dan Stevens and Emma were always there, and Dan Stevens was always there as the Beast, and he's like in all of it, the way they do Avatar and stuff. He really was in all those scenes. But we
Yeah.
would have voices but yeah, you're right. It's a different kind of skill set. And again, some of the difference between film and theater, which I also try to impart to actors and young actors, is doing the prep work. Because of film, it's very rare occasions when you shoot in sequence, but most films you're shooting out of sequence based on locations and days, and so you have to really, whether it's music or not, prepare where you are. And of course, it's trusting a director and working with the director as well, because they have the whole vision, the whole film in their head, but you've done the work. So it's like, you hear those stories from Wicked recently where they were like, it was raining and we had to run inside and do For Good on a rain day, where it's like, oh, all of a sudden we're jumping to the end of the film and singing our emotional moment. But
Yeah.
it's doing the prep work, I always say. So you really could end up shooting you have a schedule, but anything on any day, things come up and oh, this is, and again, going back to the musical, like the audition thing, it's like, where am I before this? What happened? Getting myself into that space. And then
Yeah.
also, yeah, to what you're saying, it's like the technical things around it too. With musical numbers, you do have to, because you do have to lay down a track for editing and assembling things, so it is following that, whether it's, and sometimes you fix it after and sing live and blah blah blah, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's more doing puzzle pieces that then have to be put together.
Yeah. That's great advice. I'm glad you shared that. I think that it's interesting because you hear even really established actors sometimes talk about going on a Marvel set or whatever it is and feeling very silly with pretending to wield like a fireball and throw it. What's your advice, I guess, for maybe getting out of your own head and sort of just like shaking off the silly and committing to the bit?
That's funny. It's getting out of your head and committing to the bit. But I mean, the thing about that, even like within Marvel, there's like tongue in cheek. And again, it's finding out, working with the director, what's the tone, what's the idea of this. But when it
Mm,
is, and sometimes a good film director will really try and like, you hear those funny. I just listened to a podcast recently with Laura Dern telling the story about
so
because
good.
Jurassic Park was like so early in terms of CG. They were all like, what are we looking at? And Spielberg was like, then it roars. And like, well, can you give us a sound cue, like a roar, so we know when we're reacting? And then they were doing the scene ever as serious. And Steven Spielberg apparently was like, roar, roar. And they all cracked. But
The
I just say
giggles,
that in
yeah.
terms of like, I think a film director too, it's like if you're going out of sequence, it's like helping someone get to that point and trusting you get what you need. But it is again, understanding what that moment is and what that fireball is and committing to, and whether it ends up looking different on screen when you see it,
Mm,
because the CG artists are going to take it, that you create something real and tangible for yourself, you know? And again,
yeah.
to what, we were doing on Beauty, Emma was working with Dan Stevens. Like he was there on set in his normal face and doing all those scenes. And she in playing off of him, but she's also has artist renderings of this is what he'll look like, so you are kind of substituting that. Oh, and before I forget too, when you were asking about the musical thing with films like Beauty and the Beast, and there, what's nice about a musical movie too is it is closer to theater, especially with a director like Bill. It's like there was a good rehearsal period. We did table
Mm,
work around the table for the scene work and talking about all of it. And then you have an ensemble, like everyone in that film, and that's a special movie because it works out that way too, where it's a village. So everyone in that village is in Belle, is in the mob song, is in just like they are on
mm,
stage. Like we had an ensemble that we all got to know and who were in a different studio working with Anthony Von Last and our choreography team and learning those numbers. And sometimes you tweak things for the camera, but you're learning Gaston, like a Broadway number. It's just not playing to one direction. So,
yeah.
it's like choreographed a certain way that then they tweak and you're playing it in 360 essentially.
Yeah.
And then tweaking it to camera angles. But you do get and you hear that from people. I remember when Chicago came out and Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones were talking about how special it was to like be working with like this ensemble of dancers and like you all have that
Yeah.
kind of community and it felt like that.
It's
So
so
I think
cool.
that's still nice. And you do have like usually for a movie musical still have that rehearsal period and yeah, ensemble kind of feel.
Yeah. Well, speaking of nice, I would love to move into a movie that is now going to become a musical, which is that you're working on the adaptation of the hit film Crazy Rich Asians alongside the incredible John M. Chu, which is just
Yes.
so legendary. Who, I mean, he's had quite the year, quite the wicked past couple of years.
Yes.
What's it been like
And
to
who
work with
you've met
him,
with
first of all?
too.
Yes, I love John. I got
Yeah.
to interview him on my other podcast. Such a gem, so
Amazing.
creative.
Yeah.
And his book, I highly recommend to anybody that is trying to break into this
Yeah.
industry. It's called Viewfinder. It's on my shelf over there.
Yeah. I just started reading it too. And from
Oh,
meeting
did you?
him too, it's like we have kind of similar in that energy of like getting the camcorder and just making stuff. And yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah. And you can't even get a VHS anymore player. It's so hard. I'm trying to
It's
get a
hard.
TV with a VHS player. I have all these VHSs. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's it been like to work with him so far? What do you feel like you're soaking up?
He's amazing. And here's the thing, I probably can't talk much about that project because
Totally.
it is still new, and I'm pretty new to it. Was met with John and but again, because I kind of came from both worlds, was recommended to him similar to Bill because he's someone who loves theater, loves musicals, obviously is brilliant and has
Mhm.
so many ideas. And I'm someone who kind of straddles both worlds and can yeah, just kind of be an in between and a translator for some things, but also like yeah, get to work with and he's just yeah, great and smart. And I think there are a lot of it's amazing too that project. Again, we did kind of like a quick reading, and then we just did a something at the Broadway Across America conference, and yeah, it's early stages, but I think it's really good, and it's exciting
I'm
to
sure.
work with him and Kevin Kwan, who wrote the original novel as well as the follow-up
Wow.
novels, who's very involved, and it's a great creative team, and for John and Kevin too, who created the books and then created the film together. It's like, why does this need to be a musical? It's again asking those questions and what we get to do differently and take from the book that wasn't in the film, or and they're exploring it in a different way in that language with, I think, especially with those characters where so much is unsaid, and a lot of that with the film and that culture is like what you're not saying or repressing or can't say that you can then say in song, and those, the way the same as I always say, like in a way, sometimes when you're singing to yourself, it's similar to like a Shakespeare soliloquy, it's like when we're able to like verbalize or vocalize things that are internal. So anyway, I'm not, that wasn't your question. See, I'm
that's
rambling like
see,
crazy,
it came to a good reminder, which is that I think a lot of us forget. Sometimes we get confused. You can't tangibly think about who you're singing to, and sometimes it's just yourself. It's like you're talking to yourself. I mean, that's even a good reminder in itself. And I wonder whether it's this show or you're workshopping another new musical or you're in previews about to open a show, actors really have to be able to roll with the punches a lot of the times. Can you share any stories of a time an actor maybe had to implement a drastic note last minute, whether it was in previews or like during a workshop? I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy things being juggled.
Oh God, I don't know if I do, to be honest. I know it's happened, but nothing is jumping into my little head right now that's like, oh yeah.
Well, even as far as balancing new lines, then lyric changes, then there's a new costume, and then the thing is going to fly over there now, and there's a new lighting change. Like, I think there's so much that performers have to balance, and of course directors are the ones really overseeing it all. But it's interesting what you talked about too, as far as gaining the confidence to say, hey, I'm kind of at capacity for changes today. I don't think I can remember anymore. Like, what about that?
I mean, it's always happening during previews. And honestly, that makes me think about, because I worked on Tootsie. I was the associate director on Tootsie. And anyone who's worked with the also brilliant Robert Horn knows he's given you a list of jokes and new lines like, every day, like, let's try this, let's try that, which is so much fun, but it is a lot for the actors. But again, that was a brilliant cast. And I also directed the tour version, and in Japanese, which was which was a whole nother thing. But I think there have been times where I've been involved with projects, whether it's that or another, where the actors like, you can speak up and say like, I can't do anymore. Let's do that today and like see how that goes, and I can try the other tomorrow. It's like, or like, maybe that's too many things. I can't think of one.
You all aren't mad at actors that kind of are able to speak up for themselves in that way, if it's obviously a genuine, not mean taking over the process kind of way.
I think it's like, again, I think depends on situations, because it's all of us. And again, like you said too, it's like sometimes we all forget, like directors, we're like have our own challenges as well. It's like we're leading the ship. There are times when I say that, like, oh yeah, if an actor's like, I can't do that today, there might also be times where it's like, you have to, because we have to like freeze the show tomorrow and we have to try this version. So you're like, right, that it's not, you can't always be like, it depends where you are in the schedule and what is needed, or is there a producer out saying like, you have to change this tonight, or that's when I think tensions arise, and hopefully you like all work through them, and then what needs to be done and who can do what, and you come to a agreement and see what you can do. But I think that's you can't say, I can say yes, in general I'd like for an actor to be like able to voice their capacity and say, okay, but there's sometimes where it's like, I'm so sorry, but we have to do this tonight if we're going to try it,
It's a larger community working together. And you mentioned Tootsie. Of course, we've talked about Elf. When an actor is stepping into projects like that are so iconic and beloved, Crazy Rich Asians would be another kind of example. What's your advice on how they can honor the original material but still make it their own?
It's different. It varies, right? Because there are shows where it is like, on like even the workshop of Crazy Rich, no one's talking about really what the actors did there. It's like, it's really approaching it like its own thing. It's a new thing. It's different. But something like, I worked on 9 to 5, where it's, and the brilliant Megan Hilty, is playing Dora Lee, which is famously associated with Dolly Parton. And I think Megan, who is, again, genius, nailed that fine line of giving that Dolly part, like doing things that are so Dolly, like the laugh and some like physicalities and some things that are so Dolly. Yet I would I might be biased, but I literally felt like she was her own version. When you say Dorothy in the musical, I picture Megan Hilty. I don't, and her,
Yeah.
a very different Dorothy than Dolly, yet she, I think, nailed some of those things that check the boxes like we want to see that are little nods to Dolly. And
Yeah.
I think you have to with that role because it's kind of iconic in a way. But
Yeah. Wait, Dave, can you please give all the people at home a little Dolly Parton story if you have one?
oh
Because
my
I know we've
God.
talked about Dolly because she's my favorite, but I feel like we can't stop here without you maybe just sharing a little Dolly with all of us.
I steal a line that was a Joe Mantello line about when people would ask, what's it like working with Dolly Parton? And he would say, it's exactly what you'd think, but better.
Oh, I love that.
It's really, I'm like, that's the best way to phrase it. So I steal that from Joe because that's true. That's really it. Like
Yeah.
she's everything you'd imagine, and so smart and kind, and she was really like so involved with that whole process. I will tell you one funny. I do have a bunch of Dolly stories, but one of my favorites is the self-awareness of being that level of celebrity, and it's not really related to the show itself. But we were sitting next to each other in the rehearsal, and they were taking photos of rehearsal. I had a Canada Dry ginger ale bottle or can kind of like in her space in front of her, and all of a sudden she just like picked it up and moved it to the side closer to me. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Was that in your space? And she was like, nope, they're just taking photos over there. And before you know it, I'll be promoting Canada Dry.
Oh.
And I was like, that's so, like, I didn't even clock that, but it's just that awareness of like, it's true. It's like they take a photo and she's got this brand in front of her. Such a small little story, but it was,
No, like a smart cookie, such a business
Yeah.
person. I love Dolly. And of course,
Yeah.
Dolly's coming to Broadway, and Dolly's a huge proponent of sort of making her own path, carving her own path. And I think so are you. You're a big proponent of creating your own work, and you've written films like Brenda and Billy,
Yeah.
and your new musical Already Perfect that you're collaborating on. And I mean, we've already touched on a bunch of them. What's your advice for listeners looking to carve out their own paths, but maybe feel nervous in this day and age where I think it's necessary to create your own content a lot of the time, but we're also oversaturated. So it's a tricky
Oh, boy.
double-edged sword. Oh boy
Yeah.
is a good way to start.
Yeah.
I think you meant, oh boy.
You know what else that just made me think of? And this might be, again, my whole brain is going in 10 different directions, and this might go away from your question a bit, and also might be self-serving, and I will admit it.
It'll
So it's
come back.
okay,
It's okay.
right, if I admit it? Because we're talking about all these shows I've been associated on, and now you just mentioned things I'm developing, and I do have to put a shout out to a project that so many people have been involved with that is hopefully happening soon, which has had so many stops and starts because of the pandemic, but also is a musical based on a film, which is Pump Up the Volume, based on the 1990 film with Christian Slater. And I bring this up for two reasons, which does partially answer your question, but also jumps back to the other question about like Megan Hilty and people creating something new. It's like that you're younger, but like my generation, like Christian Slater, it was a smaller, like kind of cult movie, but Christian Slater was so iconic in that role. And it was like, and I'm totally through the workshops and steps we've done, so many different actors have played that part who are so different from Christian Slater. And so I love embracing and finding our own, and the show itself is very different than the film, embraces the things about the film in the 90s, but takes it to a direction that I think is very relevant nowadays, now. And this is why I'm going to feed it into what you just asked me. Because one, it's like, as an artist, jump back to the other questions, I love being a part of I loved that film. It really had a big effect on me. So it's wild now working with Sandy Stern, who produced the film, and Alan Moyle, who wrote and directed it. We just saw this kind of workshop stage thing we did in LA this summer. And so it's going in so many different directions that Sandy is the best producer to have involved with that, who's just like, go, get rid of that, do make it its own thing. And again, with the casting, it was like really people would come in, or we'd have ideas for it and for workshops and things that then it opens up different things in the story. So that's what, again, just to the comment about like, playing a part or coming in for something that you might not think you fit. Cause even one of those actors was like, I'm not right for this. And I was like, yes, you are. So I always think, again, be confident in what you're trying to do. But I also bring this up in terms of you're like the world right now and oversaturated, and it's crazy. And I will not bore you with the long story of how long we've been trying to make this music happen, and that as many were like, we were doing 2 out of towns when the pandemic hit and the set was in the theater and we were 5 days from tech after trying to make this show happen for 5 years and then going in pre-production for our second out of town and being kind of tagged as the like pre-Broadway, world premiere that then got derailed by a pandemic that we're still kind of trying to get this show back. However, what's wild is in the last 2 years, unfortunately, because of the state of the world, what the musical is saying, there were periods when people are like, but is this relevant now? It's the 1990s, kids with boomboxes. Like right now, kids are on Instagram and they, sometimes they're oversaturated. Like we're getting too much of them. For anyone who doesn't know, the movie, like the musical, is about a guy who's anonymous who goes on the radio to speak truth to like being a teenager. And something tragic happens in the school and no one knows who this is. And the school is very kind of conservative and blaming this young anonymous guy on the radio. And the kids are like, he tried to help and fix the situation. And it's very honest and raw and kind of why we have to remember what it feels like to be young as we get older and let the young generation be the voice of change. And at a certain point in the development of this, people were like, well, young people now are everywhere. They have Instagram, TikTok. We're hearing their voices nonstop. Does this relevant compared to a time when it was radio and we didn't have all these outlets? And all of a sudden this musical about young people having to rise up against things that are, oppressing or changing, or this piece about young people rising up against this conservative school and something that's causing harm is all that, and how that connects to different generations, because it also is about him and his father and how change comes from the young and making a difference is all of a sudden feeling really important now. And I just bring this up because there were periods in my creative life where I was like, I really thought this show was going to change my career and like be this, and we were on this path with it, and then it fell apart and I ended up on this other path and different things happened again that were positive for me too. But now it's feeling like, oh, maybe this was I needed to, I still keep believing in it and it's finding its path at the right time where it's going to end up stronger. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess this all comes down to something I could have said much simpler, which is something I say to myself all the time, because we forget, like you even said, like we're all struggling. I'm like, when you at the beginning said like you're a successful director, I'm like, am I?
I saw your eyes. Yeah. You
Yes.
are.
I was like, that makes me uncomfortable because I feel like there are people I admire and love who are, and I have a very different path than some people. Like actually working with John Chu, it's like he was making movies when I was assisting people. And I love work. I like being an associate director. And there were times I was like, oh, I should break out of that and just do my own work. And now I'm kind of still doing both because there's something I love about my personality and stuff that I love working with other people and getting to be a part of their process and helping be that what that role fills, as well as my own. But I just say it's so challenging what we do and this community and the business of it all, and the world throws at you. And sometimes even with the world in such disrepair right now, it's like, what we're doing stupid? And then I see things that change my life, or even I saw maybe Happy Ending again, speaking of brilliant direction by Michael Arden. And that show just made me feel better. And it's like, and also and I saw Paddington when I was in London, which again is like, and I think that show is resonating with people right now because it's about empathy and kindness. Even like Paddington is going to give a marmalade sandwich to someone trying to destroy him. It's like, and it's saying so much about, an immigrant story through the guise of this bear. And I just think art does matter. And bring it back to your point, I think it's just like, it can be so hard for all of us, and it's staying true to the things you believe in, and that in your gut, you're like, I have to do this, and I just can't lose that. And I've had points where should I do something else? Should I go back to school for something else? I'm like, no, I might make less money this year, but I kind of think this is where I need to be, and the universe keeps telling me that and putting me in different places. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like if it's in your gut and you're like, it's that thing when people would come to my college and be like, don't do it unless you have to. It's kind of true. And as I get older, I'm like, shit. But because it's so
very relatable, what you're saying. And it harks back to what you said earlier too, which is that sometimes you're laying the bricks of your path. Other times you're walking on it, or maybe walking down a different path and then coming back to your own path. It's all about sort of moving forward, doing what you love. And I mean, hey, you never know. Dolly Parton could have been sitting there jealous of you that you just got to drink your Canada Dry in peace when we're all like, I want to be Dolly. It's kind of all relative. We all, it's a human thing to think that way. So I'm here to remind you, you are a successful director, Dave, and you've done so many incredible things, just like looking at you as your friend and then looking into the things you've actually done as a researcher host. I could have passed out. I could have just really died with pride because not only have you done incredible work, but you're a kind person. You lead with kindness, which could be a whole other podcast. And one day it will be, friends. But we're still on this one. And before we go, we got to play a really quick surprise game. It's a flash round. So we're going to keep it moving. Basically, I'm going to say a sentence and you're just going to finish it, all with the intention of giving advice for actors.
Okay.
As a director, I wish actors knew
that we're nervous too.
I think the best headshots are
when it feels like that's you.
If an actor isn't a triple threat, they can still do musicals because
they bring something unique to the table that no one else is going to bring.
You're crushing it. In an audition setting, an actor can really stand out by...
Oh, dear. Wait. I'm failing that one. You were like, you're crushing it, and fail. And eggs flat.
Confidence. You are crushing it. What's the first thing that pops into your head, I guess, when you think of audition advice, really?
Say it again. Say the sentence again.
In an audition, an actor can stand out by...
That is hard because what pops into my head is different times that people have come in and just done something kind of unique or introduce themselves in a funny way, or been like, I'm going to do this, or wearing something unique that just makes them pop. So I guess makes you pop.
Makes you
work?
pop.
Did that grammatically work? I can't remember the
By
sentence.
poppin'. Is poppin'. Is poppin'. Is poppin'. My favorite note to give actors to get them out of their head or just shake things up is...
Why are you saying this? Why are you singing this?
The why.
Or who. Why or who?
Ask yourself the 5 W's, right? Who, what, where, when, why?
Yeah. But I would just say one of them, otherwise you'll be like Dave Solomon and go in 5 different directions at once and splat.
I love that. Okay, you kind of touched on it, but the last one here is, and I wrote slate, but we can think about when an actor walks into the room too. The best way for an actor to slate is...
sincerity and honesty. Is that right? That's not what you're looking for.
Even just walking into the room. No, that's perfect. Introducing themselves. Because I think actors overthink these things. It's like sometimes they'll go and try to make a joke, it doesn't land. Other times they'll go and maybe honest and it's like, oh, it's raining outside. And then they're a Debbie Downer. It's kind of like just go in there, be yourself, do your thing. Just keep it moving.
Yeah. And come in with who you are that day.
Who you are that day.
I think what you do notice is when someone is trying to put on something that doesn't feel authentic too. But again, I will say, all that aside, we know I was a terrible auditioner again. It's like we all know you're nervous. Like you can be nervous, you can be this. I try to make you feel warm in the room and welcome. It's like, and there's so much going on at times. It's just like, be confident in your choices. And it's like what matters more than is making a confident choice and connecting to the material and doing something more so than, how you slate yourself. But I do look in terms of, in video twos, I always do watch the slate and it's that little moment, just a glimmer of just like self. Just be yourself. Just be yourself.
Be yourself. Remember that song from Just Friends, the movie with Ryan Reynolds? Okay.
I don't remember
I don't know if it aged well, but it's really sweet. Okay.
There's another Be Yourself. Be yourself. It's not E.T., but what is that? Oh, it's Aladdin. When the genie turns into a bee, Robin Williams, he's like, be yourself.
Yes, so good.
There you go.
Be yourself is great advice, Dave, but we always end here with a gotten or a given, as you may know if you listen to the show. So what is the best piece of advice you've either gotten or given in regards to navigating this wild industry?
And I kind of already ruined mine because it was kind of what we ended up talking about at the beginning. And I did think about this because I listen.
That's okay. We can just hit it home.
The best advice I got as director was someone I really respect, who I worked with, told me, don't do it unless you really love it and see what you can do with it, because it's too much work as a director to like commit to something if you don't care about it. Which I've taken with me, and I kind of have live by that. There are times, of course, we need a job, but I've actually mostly worked on things that I really care about and love. However, there are other people I've given the flip advice that are like, do anything you can. And I think I will put that into my giving advice, which kind of is what I said I already ruined, which is what because I thought about this last night and it came to and now I can't repeat what you said, was so brilliant about sometimes you make a path, sometimes you follow it. Because it's those two things. And I feel like that's the advice I would now give that I now can trademark according to Robert Peterpaul, which is...
I did it while you were talking. Don't worry.
Did you get the trademark?
We own the rights.
Do I get the rights? Do I get a
I just reserve the right for 10%.
Okay.
Dave. Generous of me. No, but I think that's beautiful.
But I think it's the advice. I've gotten both those advice, like careful what you pick and do everything. And there are times in my life where it's like, take everything you can do. And sometimes I do question as a director too, should I have said yes to that and done more? Would I be farther along? And I think this as an actor too. I have friends out of college who were like, say yes to everything and things that were picky. And sometimes the more you do, the more people you meet, that leads to that one that matters. And you need to just keep going. But then there are times, mostly when you get older and have, I guess, establish yourself more, where you can be, as an actor too, selective. And it's like, make sure you're doing something that's worth the time and effort. So then my advice is, taking those two that I received that are very different and putting them together into the one we've now trademarked.
Yeah. I love that. And I think time is the most valuable thing we have, which is why I'm extra grateful that you chose to spend a little slice of your time with us here today. Dave, you are just the best. And I appreciate you being you, my friend. And I hope you're confident in the fact that you are a successful director.
Well, a little more maybe. But I appreciate you. You're phenomenal at what you do. And as an actor and in all your hosting and podcasting and Art of Kindness, Dave. It's an honor to be here, Robert Peterpaul.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you.